you for having me here. I appreciate it. I really came here to learn from you guys more than to speak, but Brett convinced me that I had to do this, so thanks, Brett. Quest is, this presentation is not going to really be about Quest. It's going to be about climate control and the equipment that's available. As Constance pointed out earlier this morning, there's a lot of technology out there. There's not one right answer for anybody, so really this is going to be about talking about everything that's available and about and climate in general. I know I'm the last thing before happy hour here and cocktail hour, so I'll try to make this quick. We're going to start about talking about the basics of humidity. So one thing we learned throughout our industry, and like they said, I've been doing dehumidification for a long time. Our company's been doing dehumidifiers for 40 years. But we've been doing cannabis industry for about 10. So one thing we learned when we first went after it in the United States was nobody had a humidity problem. They had a mold problem. They had a powdery mildew problem. They had a bud rot problem. So when we attacked the market about talking about humidity, no one wanted to listen. When we started talking about what the real problem was we're trying to solve, we got a lot more people paying attention. So if you can feel it, your plants can feel it. And Constant hit on a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about on the climate side. So basically, humidity, relative humidity, is about the relationship with the temperature of the air. So when we get into VPD and all that other good stuff, that's what we're going to learn. It's like the air is like, temperature is like a container. So the hotter your environment is, the more water it can hold. So a lot of things we hear is, well, when we turn off the lights, our humidity spikes. Well, what happens is your room gets colder. So although you have the same amount of air, your relative humidity is going to go up and your moisture is going to increase. So if you're running a greenhouse and you turn off all the stuff and at night you wake up and your greenhouse has dew all over it, it means you need to be trying to take some. So Constance showed us a VPD chart. This is another one. There's a lot of them out there, but it basically goes under the same concept. So one of the things we learned in the U.S. is a lot of the contractors doesn't understand plant science. They don't understand how VPD works. So we really had to get into talking with the growers and with the farms themselves on what they're trying to solve and what they're trying to get at. All right, I'm not going to sit up here and read this whole thing, but basically everyone in this room probably knows most of the stages of the growth cycle and all that good stuff. Every stage has Every stage has a different level of environment, and every grower has a different level of environment that they're trying to get. So all this is talking about is the different stages as a whole between going from, veg all the way through the flower. And this right here I want to point out shows that every grower has a different style of growing. We're never here to tell you how to grow. All we're here for is to help you get to the point that you want to get to. So a few years back, we sponsored a study. It's a third-party study by Cannabis Business Times, and it basically went around and talked to a whole bunch of the growers inside of the U.S. and what are they doing for their environment. So it's in this here right here. If you want a copy, we have it. There's also some stuff on the website. But it talks about what level of humidity and temperature you want for each stage of your grow. And as you can see, there's a wide variety of answers that are out there. It's not our job to tell you how to grow. Most of you guys know that way better than we do. It's our job to tell you how to get to the environment you want. So that's what we work on here is when we go through the cycles and go through the information with you, we simply try to get it to where you want your environment to be. So why does dehumidification matter? So when you control your RH and your VPD, it allows for you to control any of the molds, powdery mildew, bud rot that you have in your environment. It also allows, with the temperature and the relationship, your plants to be healthy and successful. So today we're going to talk more about the cultivation side, and I think there's a couple presentations tomorrow about the dry side, so we're not going to really hit on that today. We're just going to talk about the flower rooms, the equipment that's available, the technology that's out there. So understanding the technology, the first thing is your basic, what do the terms mean? So every dehumidifier rates their dehumidification. They rate it in capacity. They rate it in pints or liters per kilowatt hour. What does all that mean? That's your efficiency. The more water you can pull out per kilowatt hour, the more efficient your dehumidifier is. And from what the conversations I've had here, I think energy is relatively important here. So the more you can get out for less energy, the better. It also means if it's more efficient, it's actually producing less heat into your room than an inefficient dehumidifier. The rating conditions can be tricky. There's many people that rate it at what's called saturation. So basically high temperature and high humidity. So on their box, they'll say it does 180 pints. Well, that's at 30 degrees Celsius and humidity. How many of you guys are flowering at those conditions? Probably not many of you. So you're not really going to get those type of capacities at the conditions you're using. So whatever you decide and whichever units you use, make sure you talk to the manufacturer to see what they produce and what they can do at the conditions you need, not at the conditions they want to talk about. So these are some common points. There's saturation. There's something called AHAM. That's the American Homeowners Association for Manufacturers that try to standardize what people rate it at so it can be an even comparison. And then there's DOE, the Department of Energy. And in the United States, everything has to meet the DOE standards or else you can't sell it. So let's get into the equipment. So this is your standard split system air conditioner with a VRF. This is really popular. It's your normal AC system. And every one we're going to go through, including our own technology and our competitors' technologies, have advantages and disadvantages. There's no one right answer. It's about what makes you successful. We're in it to make you successful, not in it necessarily to sell equipment. Obviously, we want to do that. But if you're not successful, we're not successful. So this is your split air condition. So one of the things it does good, it focuses on sensible. Sensible means temperature. So it allows the heat to drop out of your room, which a lot of people like. They don't like the extra heat that dehumidifiers bring in. Well, a split system will drop it out. The downside is it's not very efficient at taking out water. So it's going to cost you a lot more money on the electric side of the things. We have, it's one of the first real refrigeration patents since Carrier made most of them in the 40s. And this allows for us to get more energy efficiency in a smaller package. So ultimately, as you saw, the other one was 2 to 3. We're 3 to 4.5 liters per kilowatt hour. It still adds heat into the room. You can still get this efficiency by using an air-to-air heat exchanger. You're just usually going to have a bigger package when you do that. Then there's your unitary rooftop air conditioners. Those are the big ones you see on commercial buildings and that get ducted in through the system. Those have the drawbacks there is once again, they focus on the sensible. So they're going to be not as efficient. The other drawback is if you put all your eggs into one basket, if it breaks like every mechanical equipment will at some point, whether it's a year from now, 5 years, 10, 15, it's going to go down at some point. If you have all your eggs in one basket, you're in a really bad situation. If that happens at your house in your basement, you're uncomfortable for a week. If that happens in your grow, you lose millions potentially. Then you have your rooftop with hot gas reheat. Again, the drawback's efficiency. What you're doing here when you're doing reheat is you're trying to make your air condition do all your dehumidification. So ultimately what happens is when your air condition goes off because you no longer need it, you're firing up a heater and you're using that heater to make your air condition run again so it can take out moisture, although you don't need it for the temperature. And then you have your air handling unit. Air handling units can be really good if you get it spec'd right. When you use your chillers and stuff of those natures, if you get dialed in, you can have a really efficient and a really good system. The drawbacks, the piping, and it's also if you change stuff. So if you change your room into a different one, you get a new master grower, you get a new, you get different types of plants, you want to water differently, you want another schedule. It's not that easy to change and to adjust. And then there's desiccants. Desiccants are great if you have a low dew point application. So the refrigeration dehumidifiers that I talked about before, which includes the Quest, if you get to a dew point, and that means it's a relationship between your temperature and your humidity. If you get too low, your refrigeration is going to freeze up and your coils are going to freeze up. Desiccants don't have that problem. It's like a dump truck. It just keeps going. They're not efficient, but if you need low temperatures, dry conditions, a desiccant is going to be the technology you want for your room. Again, it's not about buying our equipment. It's about buying what's right for you. And then there's cooling with reheat, which we kind of talked about the hot gas. Well, this is cooling it with electric. So this is about the least efficient way you can do something, and it's going to cost you a lot of electricity. So right here shows an example of kind of where each of the technologies fall on the efficiency side. This is just about efficiency. It's not about stability of your room. It's not about any of the other stuff. How much water can you remove per kilowatt hour that is taken to run your equipment? All right, so now I'm going to get into kind of more of the fun stuff with the grows. So there's several of you over here that I've talked to before, and we've gone through some of these, and this will be a repeat of a lot of the stuff. So your most basic way of sizing a room is water in, is water out. So most studies will show whatever you're watering your plants, so whatever they're drinking, not the runoff, whatever they're drinking, they're going to transpire into the air. Typically, a study will say it's anywhere between 93% and 97%. So the simple math is how much are you feeding minus your runoff? That's how much you're going to need to remove out of your room, especially if you're doing an indoor grow. If you're doing a greenhouse and you have ventilation, things can change, and you'll have to take into the consideration of what the environment is or the air that you're bringing into your room. And on those, what a lot of people end up doing is they only want to dehumidify at night. So a lot of people run with a wet wall in their greenhouse. They bring in the outside air to keep your greenhouse cool, which is perfectly fine. But if you're constantly having air exchange, then you're at the mercy of whatever your outside environment is. So a lot of people will do that during the day so they don't have to pay for the cooling, and then they'll seal it up at night, and they'll run dehumidifiers at night to bring the humidity down to where they want, so you don't have all that dew point, all the moisture on your plants and your walls in the morning. So what we do here is what most science says is your plant transpires about 70% of the water during sunlight hours and about 30% of the water at night. So what these calculations are showing is it's calculating your max transpiration rate for the daytime hour per hour and your max transpiration for night. And when we're sizing the dehumidifiers, all we would do would be focusing on the night hourly rate to make sure that you're sized appropriately to take out the moisture that you need to at night. You see a random number that says 15.6. That only is relevant if it's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. All that can be adjusted by that. If you don't have to, do the calculations here, you can contact us. We're more than happy to talk through things. Our suppliers are more than happy to talk through how to size and all that good stuff. We'd much rather have you talk to our engineers. So these are basically the three categories of what the controls will do. So all of our dehumidifiers can be ran by your building management system. We have a control that will run your dehu. You can use our control if you want. But if you have a system in place, whether it's a Previs system, whether it's a Trollmaster, whether it's all of those will run our dehumidifiers as well. And then here's a little bit about Quest. So Quest was founded in 2006, and it was founded actually as a quest for the next market. So our company, Therma-Stor, had a residential brand called Santa Fe and had a restoration brand called Phoenix. We established Quest to go after commercial and industrial applications. So we found water treatment plants, we found fitness centers, self-storage, which I think America's the only place that actually has self-storage units. But we, libraries, schools. Well, finally, we started getting some product back in service. And when our service guys were running it, it smelled like marijuana. So we said, okay, well, is this a market? So we went out to California, we started knocking on doors, and we started learning more about the market. In 2015, well, 2011 is when we started doing that. In 2015 is when we really decided to make it we decided there was going to be a lot of business into it, and it's something we could do. So we hired people that knew the industry. We hired people that knew what they're doing, and we started making equipment that was dedicated to the cannabis market. In the U.S., that meant we made a 230-volt unit, which was the first of its kind at the time in 2015. Now we have a 480-volt, which is the only standalone one over in the market. So we're doing kind of now on the international. We started up, as you can see up here, in 2020, we started our business with HydroBiz. So they distribute our products up here, and we started making 50 hertz equipment for the international side. So we do feel that as a whole, the rest of the world is going to be doing the same stuff that the U.S. is trying to do, although our laws are pretty messed up. But I think everybody here realizes that for the longest time, the United States tried to lead the war on drugs, and honestly, since now it's ignoring its own people and its own states, everybody else gets to do it too, and it's kind of been a interesting thing. So I get to travel around and visit places like South Africa. It's my first trip ever here, in Europe and some other places, and it's making me learn a lot of stuff, and it's bringing it back. And so I've been fortunate to be able to do that. What we're trying to accomplish here is building out a platform that works for the environments that we're in. So every culture, every country we go to has different needs, has different rules, has different regulations. Every country has different regulations on what can come in for a refrigeration product. So we have to learn all those things, and we're trying to establish that, and it's been a challenging but fun time. So in conclusion, I'm going to get us over here to happy hour, but ultimately the one thing I want to make sure that we understand is What Quest has always been about is educating the market, not selling dehumidifiers. It's about educating on the climate and the need of climate control. So there's many of you that I have talked in here before. Sometimes your needs don't mean you need dehumidification. That's okay. It's about getting you successful. And the three things that we try to focus on is efficiency, quality, and service. We believe in taking care of the customer, and we believe that your success makes us successful. And that's it. If you have any questions, you can let me know. You can find me later at the cocktail hour, any of that good stuff. You can also contact me back in the United States, and we'll keep the conversation going.